Man once named as a person of interest in Young Dolph's murder has now also been killed.
2 people have been arrested in a deadly Castalia Heights shooting.
Tonight, we strongly encourage everyone to stay home if you do not have to be out.
The tragic death of Young Dolph hit Memphis like a shockwave, creating a chain reaction nobody could slow down. One move sparked another, and soon the whole city felt like it was sliding into a darker chapter that had been building for years. The energy changed overnight, and every street felt colder because people already knew something big had just gone wrong. With the suspects' faces blasted across every news station, the whole situation snowballed into something no one expected. Folks started whispering about how connected everything seemed, and the pressure in Memphis grew to the point where danger felt like it was sitting right outside your door. That's why people started calling it a real war in Memphis, not just another tragedy. Young Dolph's death in November 2021 didn't just hurt the city emotionally, it shook the entire culture of Memphis. He was one of the most respected artists the city ever had, and losing him while he was on his way to deliver Thanksgiving turkeys made the pain hit even harder.
I told y'all just on the live stream, niggas about to start dying and going to jail real soon. Ain't nobody want to believe me, bruh. All this is tied to Dolph. All this, bruh. All this is trickle-down effects. That means if anybody that's in Trula got anything to do with Young Dolph's death, Justin Johnson. Teasy at the end of the day gives the okay.
His passing lit a fire inside people, and the streets became tense, to the point where police were straight up telling families to stay inside. But the chaos didn't stay as simple chaos. It evolved into something deeper that people called a full-on conflict, just like Cut to the Chase TV reported at the time. People were dipping out of the city, hiding out, or distancing themselves from anything that looked risky, because Dolph's death had too many moving parts tied to it. When the news broke that Dolph was gone, nobody knew who was really behind it. But police quickly started pulling people in. There were levels to the suspects, too.
So at the end of the day, getting Teasy out the way is worth more than even getting the actual killer out the way. Because if it weren't for you, who is this? Teasy ain't just no gang member. Teasy was the head of Trula Mafia. Big Nooski is the same. That was all in pictures with Justin Johnson, Young Dolph's alleged killer.
Some men were charged for the direct act, others were labeled accessories, and a few more were tagged only as persons of interest. And as investigators dug through names, the list kept growing longer and more tangled, almost like every clue revealed another player in the shadows. And then came the biggest twist. Authorities added someone they believed could have been the mastermind behind everything. All these people were connected in different ways, and once cops caught one, it pointed them straight to another, creating a full domino effect of names and faces being exposed on live TV. But even while news outlets claimed Govan was the mastermind, that's only what reports were saying at the time. Since then, something strange shifted.
That officers need help locating 26-year-old Devin Burns and 26-year-old Joshua Taylor. With the addition of these 2 men, there are now 5 people total either behind bars, on the run, or wanted for questioning in the case that has garnered national attention.
These 5 men are either in custody or wanted for questioning. Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith are both behind bars, both charged with murder in the case. Last week, an arrest warrant was issued for Shundell Barnett for being an accessory after the fact.
And the list got longer.
Sunday, 2 more men were added to the names of those police want to speak with. They are Joshua Taylor and Devin Burns.
Govan ended up getting a bond and was allowed to stay on house arrest. And this was agreed to by Dolph's own family, which had everyone confused. Meanwhile, Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith were kept locked up with no chance to leave. People started asking how someone connected to a first-degree murder charge could be allowed at home, and it pushed a lot of folks to think maybe Govan wasn't the key player he was first made out to be. And when the streets reacted, the first target people ran for wasn't Govan. It was somebody completely different, which made the whole situation even messier. The scene itself was described as brutal, something that showed how deep this whole situation really went, and how far people were willing to take things over Dolph's name. Of course, this could have been pure coincidence, but even major news outlets couldn't ignore how the murder of Young Dolph seemed to connect directly to Joshua Taylor.
Hernandez Govan. He is charged with first-degree murder, criminal attempted first-degree murder, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
Yeah, we start with that breaking news tonight. We've been told by Memphis police that a high-profile gang member was killed in a shooting in Orange Mound this afternoon. This is according to family members who tell us Joshua Taylor was named a person of interest in the Young Dolph murder case back in February of 2022. Officers say the shooting happened at Spotswood Avenue near Bunton Street. Police received a call about a body found around 1 p.m. this afternoon. A short time later, Police Chief C.J. Davis made the scene. Neighbors telling us they think the victim was actually shot last night. Police are telling us the investigation is still ongoing. We'll keep you posted.
The streets felt that vibe instantly. The locals knew deep down this was NT, the end of anything. It felt like a warning that more chaos was on the way. The energy in Memphis shifted, and everybody sensed that something heavier was brewing. YouTubers didn't hold back either, predicting straight-up war in the city. Every person tied to Young Dolph's death just so happened to be linked to a Memphis gang known as Trula Mafia, and that connection alone had people talking nonstop. This wasn't some random situation. It pointed toward a whole organization behind the move, not just a couple of individuals acting on impulse. According to King Ock 47, the key detail people were missing was that Justin Taylor wasn't just another member. He was the leader. If a major hit went out on Dolph, then the order would have had to stop at the very top.
In November 2021, Dolph was killed outside a South Memphis cookie store. 3 months later, MPD called Taylor and another man persons of interest. Taylor was reportedly questioned but never charged. Those close to the case tell us Taylor is part of a group, the same group linked to the suspects charged in connection with Dolph's murder. Taylor's death has left the community on edge, as many fear the violence isn't over, that retaliation will only continue.
And that placed Taylor right in the spotlight. That's why folks couldn't understand why TZ ended up being attacked first instead of the ones who physically pulled the trigger. But the explanation ended up being simple. The shooters were following orders, so the real accountability would have naturally fall on whoever called the shots. And just when Memphis thought things couldn't get any stranger, another suspicious death popped up involving a rapper named Big Nuki. He was believed to be close with Justin Johnson, and as you'll see later, he had even more unusual ties that made people raise eyebrows. Another reason TZ and Big Nuki were targets was because they were still active in the streets, moving around with no protection. The alleged shooters in Dolph's case were already locked up, which made them much harder to reach from the outside. Justin Johnson did end up getting punched in the face while inside, but the other suspects connected to Dolph's murder were put in special protective uniforms to keep them from getting attacked by inmates. Trula Mafia didn't operate like a clean-cut, organized hierarchy. People say the gang had a loose setup.
You see the red shirt Govan is wearing? It is because he, along with others charged in this very high-profile case, are having to be kept away from the general population in lockup.
It's true that there's no structure, but there is something called loose structure. For something that big to go down, you think Justin Johnson could just get paid to do it? No. TZ had to know about it.
But anything major had to be cleared by the leader, CEO TZ. That means a move as serious as killing Young Dolph wouldn't have just happened randomly, which is why many believe TZ was heavily involved. When word spread that he was gone, plenty of people didn't hide their reactions. Some were genuinely happy he was no longer around. Social media was wild, with users celebrating and posting things like "what goes around comes around." Street justice and case closed, claiming karma finally spun the block. Even some artists connected to Paperroute Empire seemed relieved. Kenny Muni posted LLD, which many took as Long Live Dolph, adding more fuel to the community's reaction. But the real question hanging over everything was whether this was revenge or pure karma finally catching up.
Also in the news, a man is now dead after a shooting happened on Castalia Heights this morning. Officers responded to the scene at 1 a.m. to the 800 block of Cloverdale Drive and found a 53-year-old man dead at the scene.
Late last night in Castalia Heights, Young Dolph hood, they call it Dolph Land. It's a pre be at Double R. They saying two people slid over there, just start shooting up everything.
The shooting was so brutal that an innocent man living in the neighborhood was tragically killed.
A 58-year-old man lost his life, but he was not the intended target. And I'm also hearing that it may have been another shooting just not too long ago, Castelia Heights.
As a leader of a criminal organization, COTZ would have made plenty of enemies over the years. So the list of people who might have wanted him gone was way longer than anyone first thought. With even more people having motives to take him out, what happened next made the idea of this being a response to Young Dolph's death look almost undeniable. Memphis wasn't calming down. It felt like every action was triggering another move from the opposite side. And the city was stuck watching things unfold in real time. Right after COT's death, another shooting went down, and this one hit Cast Heights, a neighborhood heavily connected to Young Dolph. That wasn't some random act or stray situation. Everybody in Memphis knew it was intentional. The people moving behind the scenes for Dolph were a crew known as Double R, and they had real ties to him.
If y'all don't know the history of Double R and Trula, they all used to be one. Trula also used to be in Castelia Heights. They split up, which created Double R and Trula.
Focusing on a widespread and sometimes deadly trend, carjackings. Car thefts in Memphis have almost doubled this year, and according to MPD, the suspects involved are getting younger.
For auto thefts, we're up significantly, and the majority of our suspects are below the age of 18, almost 30%.
In Dolph's song, Get Paid, he even raps, Double R parked in my front yard, showing how close they were. Double R was on T, just friendly with Young Dolph. They were locked in with Paperroute Empire 2, a label filled with Memphis talent and loyal to Dolph's movement. According to King Ock 47, the shooting took place right in Dolph's old neighborhood, which was also considered Double R territory. The message behind that location choice was loud, and nobody pretended otherwise. The shooting was vicious, and sadly, an innocent man living nearby lost his life, showing just how far things were spiraling.
Images of this now infamous white Mercedes, Memphis police say, was the getaway car used in Young Dolph's murder at Makita's Cookies has been viewed by millions. The car was found outside this abandoned home on Bradley Street days after the killing in late November. It's the same home seen here in this music video featuring Young Dolph's accused killer, Justin Johnson, also known as Straight Drop.
This was in T's simple Retaliation. This was a deeper conflict where anybody in the wrong place at the wrong time could get caught in the middle. Another suspicious incident followed, involving the tragic death of LaCash Desto, an upcoming rapper in Houston. She was believed to be the daughter of Hernandez Govan, which made the situation even more emotional and confusing. Nobody knows who the shooter was, and there's not enough evidence to tie it to the tensions between Trula Mafia and Double R. But the timing had people talking nonstop.
Court records show 43-year-old Hernandez Govan, who was just indicted in the rap star slaying, along with Johnson and Cornelius Smith, once lived just a few houses down.
Trula used to be cool with Dolph until Young Dolph signed somebody that on the streets, and allegedly, I'm not saying who the dude name is, y'all do that for yourself, killed they homie.
Govan's reaction made the situation feel even heavier. He went online and wrote, "I think I cursed you, Destiny, with my lifestyle. I apologize, baby." That message hit people hard, especially since it was rumored Double R and Trula Mafia were once the same gang before splitting off. That history alone created even more questions about what this chain of events really meant. So now it is time to break down the gang affiliations connected to the suspects in Dolph's case, and more importantly, why anyone would want to hit on Young Dolph in the first place.
Once Dolph did that, Trula took it as ultimate disrespect. And you start seeing Trula align themselves with Young Dolph Ops. Who was Young Dolph Ops? CMG.
King of Memphis, not the king of Memphis. Like, all of my partners king. Everybody that hang with me, all my partners, like, everybody having some paper, everybody caked up.
None of the individuals tied to the case have been convicted yet. But in Joshua Taylor's situation, the ones who came after him clearly didn't care about waiting on a courtroom verdict. And it's almost impossible to ignore that so many names circling this situation trace right back to Trula Mafia. Cut to the Chase TV, uncovered a photo that got the internet buzzing. Straight dropped the rap name of Justin Johnson. One of the alleged shooters was seen wearing a Paperroute Empire chain. He was never signed to the label, but as a rising rapper in Memphis, he definitely knew who Dolph was.
Breaking news, a shooting at a popular tourist spot in Hollywood. Tonight, a rapper is in critical condition.
Two hoods that don't get along with each other versus two record labels that don't get along with each other. Basically what it is.
Some fans claimed he wasn't wearing that chain as a supporter at all, which made the photo even more unsettling. Another picture popped up showing Young Dolph performing inside a club with Johnson standing in the background. That image sent chills through people because it suggested Dolph may have crossed paths with someone tied to his future death multiple times without even knowing it. Cut to the chase, TV also found more photos of Trula Mafia associates wearing pre-RE chains. Normally, if you see someone wearing a G-Unit or Wu-Tang chain, you assume it's for the music. But with these pre-chains, people started saying it meant something totally different.
If a nigga told you, hey man, look bro, my Jook put a $40,000 hit on you, bro. Like, man, come on, bro.
Gotti is at a level to where the streets take care of itself. He the bag, and they make sure in all ways the bag is protected. He don't got a hand in nothing, ain't put a dollar in nothing, ain't caught a hit in nothing.
A major piece of evidence in Young Dolph's murder was the stolen white Mercedes, the same car that turned this case into a puzzle with way too many connecting pieces. Remember, this wasn't just some random crew acting sloppy. This was a well-organized operation, and one of their biggest hustles was snatching cars and using them to handle serious business. On the day Dolph was shot, the shooters were inside that stolen white Mercedes, moving like they knew exactly what they were doing. That same car got linked to another shooting in Covington, almost 40 miles from Memphis, which showed it wasn't just used once, it was moving around for multiple missions. When police found the Mercedes, it was dumped in Orange Mound outside an abandoned house, almost like someone wanted it to fade into the background quietly. From there, things got even more tangled. That stolen Mercedes connected straight to Justin Johnson, the neighborhood where the car was abandoned tied right back to Hernandez Govan. And if Orange Mound sounds familiar, it's because it was the same area where CEO Tizzy lost his life. These connections didn't feel random. They felt like pieces of a bigger picture, all tracing back to the same network. Now that it's clear the suspects tied to Dolph's case were part of Trula Mafia, the real question becomes, what started their issues with Young Dolph in the first place? And wild as it seems, there was a time when Trula Mafia and Dolph had good history between them. Dolph even made music with rapper J Money Trula, dropping a track together before tragedy hit. J Money Trula was killed in 2016, and not long after, his brother D Money was also killed. The person believed to be behind D Money's death was a man named Uncle Danny. And here's where things get messy. Uncle Danny was signed to Paperroute Empire. The internet locked onto a strange old Facebook exchange that resurfaced after Dolph's death, adding fuel to the story. In the exchange, someone wrote, J Money would have had these streets crying about due, hinting that Dolph's death would have hit him deeply. J Money's mother replied, he sure didn't cry about him or D Money. He signed D Money Killer. That message alone had people staring hard at the situation. King Act 47 pointed to this moment when he explained that for Dolph, signing Uncle Danny was a business move. He saw talent, signed it, and kept it pushing. By that time, Dolph had already left Memphis and was living in Atlanta, focusing on music and his brand, not neighborhood beefs. But for Trula Mafia, that move felt like betrayal. And in street culture, betrayal rarely gets ignored. For many crews, betrayal equals retaliation, and that frustration built over years before exploding into something larger. Another major figure in all of this is Glock. He was signed to Paperroute Empire, seen as Dolph's protege, and together they even created their Dumb and Dumber albums that boosted both their careers. After Dolph's death, people started pointing out that Glock knew some of the individuals connected to the case. Dolph and Glock were also cousins through marriage, so they had family ties too. But Glock's name really got pulled into the conversation because he was reportedly cool with CEO Tizzy at one point. On the surface, that sounds like a major red flag, but there might be a simple explanation behind it. Memphis is small, so everybody crosses paths, and knowing someone doesn't automatically make you part of their actions. Still, the internet made it sound way bigger than it might have actually been. As mentioned earlier, Trula Mafia and Double R were once one single gang until they eventually split into two separate sets. When that happened, people had to pick a side, and picking a side meant cutting ties with old friends depending on where they stood. Glock, who by then was rising fast in the rap game, was probably holding on to friendships that weren't the smartest to keep, especially in a city where alliances shift quick. The idea of Glock being involved in Dolph's murder add up for two major reasons. First, Dolph was his cousin through marriage. Why would he harm someone connected to his own family? Second, Dolph was the person boosting his career, giving him platforms and helping him see real money. Taking out your biggest supporter makes no sense. So these connections between Glock and the alleged suspects didn't match up emotionally or logically. Still, people felt like Glock had some explaining to do because the streets always want answers, and Memphis never stops digging when something doesn't sit right, according to Cut to the Chase TV. One theory was that part of the motive for killing Dolph was to cut off the money flow to Uncle Danny, or even Glock. The thinking was, if Dolph is gone, the entire food chain changes instantly. When news broke that Dolph was murdered, the entire internet pointed at one person immediately: a rapper Dolph had a long-lasting feud with. Since the tension between them was public and aggressive, fans assumed this person had something to do with what happened to Dolph, and that person was Yo Gotti. So I'm going to lay out the info and let you decide whether there's any real link. Trula, Mafia and CMG had friction with PRE, and Dolph and Gotti could have ended up cool, but their path went the opposite direction. Their beef started when Dolph was blowing up and Gotti tried to sign him. A huge part of Dolph's identity was being independent. He was proud of building himself up with no major label. Gotti saw Dolph rejecting him as disrespect, and that's where the tension started growing. Dolph tweeted, "Bra went from being my #1 fan and wanting to sign me to being my biggest hater, making their issues public for everyone to see." Then, Dolph dropped his album titled King of Memphis, a phrase Yo Gotti had always used for himself. It felt like Dolph was stepping right onto Gotti's crown. Dolph later tried to soften it by saying he wasn't the king of Memphis, but a king of Memphis, a tiny difference that carried big meaning. Gotti never directly clapped back in public, but one of his affiliates, Black Youngsta, didn't stay quiet. Youngsta posted a video walking around Dolph's neighborhood with others while holding a gun, clearly looking for him and shouting disrespectful things. He said, "Dolph, you a soft. And if you got a problem, say you got a problem. And you ain't even no king of Memphis." That video had the whole city watching. Dolph responded on Instagram by posting, "First thing first. Everybody know it's you? Ho, Gotti that. Sending." Which sparked even more chaos at the time. It became clear their beef wasn't just rap. This was a personal clash that had built up over years and had both sides feeling some type of way. Dolph continued his response by saying, "Your artist out to say the lame he'd been saying and doing. I guess you still mad cause I didn't ever sign with you? Or is you still in your feelings? Cause you fail out with Gucci Mane, and you was mad at me cause I kept rocking with Gucci then." Dolph wasn't sugarcoating anything. He was calling out everything he felt went wrong between them. There weren't just one, but two attempts on Dolph's life that had connections to Gotti and Black Youngsta, which had the streets convinced something bigger was going on. In February 2017, Dolph was in North Carolina when someone opened fire on the Jeep he was driving. The vehicle was hit around 100 times, but the bulletproof glass saved his life literally. Dolph even clowned his shooters by dropping a track titled 100 Shots afterward, turning the attempt into fuel for his music. Police later learned the van used to chase and shoot at Dolph was rented by Black Youngsta, even though Youngsta claimed the van had been stolen. People found it hard to ignore how conveniently he happened to be in North Carolina at the same time as Dolph, with a rental tied directly to the shooting. It was one of those moments that left everybody raising eyebrows. Then another coincidence hit later that same year in September. Dolph survived a second attempt, and once again, someone from the other side just happened to be in the same city. The attack happened outside the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel, and at that exact time, Yo Gotti was also staying there. Gotti's associate Corey McClendon was charged in that shooting, but just like the first situation, the charges were eventually dropped. Once again, nothing stuck, and people joked that Gotti and Youngsta must have the best lawyers in the entire country because nothing ever stayed on the record. So when Dolph was shot for the third time and didn't survive, the public immediately connected the dots back to the feud with Gotti and his circle. But this time, there was no direct evidence linking them to the killing. What many speculated was that Dolph's camp and the gang he was aligned with joined forces, and Trula Mafia linked up with the people tied to CMG. It created a situation where my enemy's enemy is my friend, and the alliances shifted in a way nobody saw coming. That's where people started pulling up the connections between Trula Mafia and Yo Gotti's CMG. Two pictures surfaced that had fans talking non-stop. One showed Hernandez Govan standing next to a man named Big Duke, Yo Gotti's own brother. A picture of Govan and Gotti together would have been explosive, but even this 1-degree separation was enough to make the streets whisper. Then came allegations that Big Duke put a hit out and placed a $40K bounty on Dolph's head. Grove Hero, a comedian from Memphis, made a video claiming that Big Duke put a bounty on Doll's head, adding even more heat to the situation. Then an Instagram clip surfaced showing Big Duke with none other than CEO Tizzy, the same name tied to the Trula Mafia side. Every new image made things look even more connected. Another image went viral showing Jun Barnett, allegedly an accessory in Dolph's case, appearing in a music video for a track by Black Youngsta. And as if the connections weren't tangled enough, Big Nukie, the rapper who lost his life earlier, was signed to Bread Gang, the label run by Moneybagg Yo, who was also signed to CMG. Everywhere you looked, there were only 1 or 2 degrees of separation. Even if Yo Gotti had involvement, finding any evidence would be nearly impossible because nothing ever sticks to him. His stage name is inspired by mob boss John Gotti, who was known as the Teflon Don because nothing ever stuck in court. Yo Gotti feels like the same story: wealthy, successful, strategic, and always keeping his hands clean. He's not the leader of Trula Mafia, not a street commander, but he's a businessman with everything to lose if he ends up behind bars. That's why, while Dolph was sending shots at Gotti, it was Black Youngsta who stepped in and handled things publicly. Gotti kept his name clean, but his circle was always the one making noise. His brother, Big Duke, however, didn't move the same way. Things were always more complicated around him. In July 2023, reports came out that Big Duke had been arrested, though nobody knew why publicly. And if that arrest ends up being tied, even indirectly, to Dolph's murder, it would be extremely hard for Gotti or anyone associated with CMG to distance themselves or claim they had nothing to do with the situation.